This is the College Hockey News Insiders Podcast.
Wilmer behind the back, spinorama, he scores! What a goal by Jeremy Wilmer!
Discussion.
Into the net with a shot, he scores! Owen Mike goes 4-2, Western Michigan.
Opinion.
Back into the near circle, fires, he scores! Hysteria here in Hockey Valley as Penn State upsets number 2 Minnesota.
Special guests and your listener questions.
The icing is waved and it's over! Western Michigan has won it. The Broncos are the Frozen Four champions of 2025.
Taking you through the world of college hockey, here are your hosts, Adam Roden and Mike McMahon.
There we go. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. And if you don't know what that means, ask your parents. Actually, maybe your parents don't remember what that means, but okay. So that is from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So there you go. And if you don't know who that is, look it up. Gosh darn it. But here we are, the College Hockey News Insiders podcast. Struggling with my sinuses this week, so might sound a little off, but that's all right. It's as long as I'm good for this weekend. This is the most wonderful time of the year, after all, and it's a beautiful day in Denver here again. It's 70 degrees, so
it wasn't that way out here too this time.
Wow,
I can relate for once.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, it's not going to last long. It's going to be 30 in about 2 days, but we had like a nice 2-day reprieve. It melted a lot of the snow. I no longer have ice dam issues, so that's good. Those are gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fun. So I'm looking at the weather for this week here in Denver, and we've got 50s tomorrow, then 70, 73 on Friday, 74 on Saturday, 38 on Sunday. And then back to 60 on Monday. I don't understand. That's the beauty of it. But I don't know if that means it'll start getting cold by Saturday night. But that's when Denver's playoff game is. And here we are, first year of the NCHC being all on campus. And so we'll see how that goes. But Denver is hosting Western Michigan in the semifinal. This is the brave new world in college sports. I mean, you've only got 2 leagues left now that go down to the Final Four at a neutral site, right? I mean, as neutral as Boston can be for Hockey East. And the ECAC, of course, Lake Placid, which they should never change that as far as I'm concerned. I hope they don't. So anyway, yeah, we're going to see. I'll get to go to Denver, but it makes our lives a little more difficult because we've got to find people to cover all these things that you don't know where it's going to be. So playoff time is in full swing. Hockey East and Big Ten will have games tomorrow. And for Hockey East, that's the quarterfinal, or actually that's the first round, but the quarterfinal on the weekend. Yeah. And then they go to the Final Four the last weekend. Big Ten, 1-game quarterfinal. Well, it's 1 game in Hockey East now too. And then they'll have 1 week for semis, 1 week for finals. So there you go.
You want to hear something crazy? My son actually pointed this out to me last night. He looked this up, so I got to give him credit because the stat is his. All 3 Hockey East teams that are playing on the road tomorrow, all underdogs, right?
Yeah.
All 3 road teams all have a better road record than home record this year.
Well, I've been saying that, right? I mean,
you have been.
Yeah, just wrote an article about that.
That's right. All 3 road teams have a better road record than home record, and the 11 seed, which is Vermont, has 8 wins in the league this year. That's the most wins by the last place team ever. Technically, Maine had 8 wins the first year of Hockey East, but that was a 34-game league schedule in 1984, so I don't even really know if that counts. It's not really comparable to a 24-game schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 8. Normally that last place seed averages like 4.5 wins or something like that. It doubled almost that this year with 8. So
yeah,
I actually believe, with the exception of Providence losing in the quarterfinals, I genuinely believe that anything could happen in the Hockey East playoffs, and it really wouldn't surprise me.
No,
because all these teams have beaten each other all year.
Yeah, I mean, New Hampshire, Northeastern, I mean, that's a toss-up. I mean, Vermont's in last place, but would it shock you if they beat BU?
They beat BU on the road once already this year.
Yeah. I mean, and they only have 3 less wins right now in the regular season, 13-20 versus 16-16. So, And then Lowell and Merrimack, obviously. I mean, Lowell has been under 500, but, again, anything could happen there. So absolutely no idea what's going to happen in Hockey East. I think it's a little different in the Big Ten, probably. They've got Notre Dame, Michigan. I mean, these are quarterfinals, so 2-7. Hockey East, you're talking about 6-11, 7-10, and 8-9 playing each other, right? But in the Big Ten, you've got 2-7, 3-6, and 4-5. And the 4-5 is Wisconsin, Ohio State, but there's a massive disparity there. I mean, you're talking about the top 4 of the Big Ten probably going to the NCAA tournament, and then the bottom 3 just really being distant.
Yeah, that's one where I feel like I would be surprised if any of the higher seeds lost, at least this weekend.
Yeah. And we've got to hand it to Wisconsin because they have kind of righted the ship, it seems like, It looked like things were going south in a hurry for them, and then all of a sudden they've gotten it back on track. I think they're back up to 12 in the MPI after slipping to 15. They swept Penn State on the road. Penn State's another story, by the way. They allowed 12 goals and lost both games, but Wisconsin is now 6-2 in the last 8. And so, it looks like they're back on track. I guess it wouldn't be – I mean, they did lose to Ohio State on February 14th. Wisconsin beat them the night before, so, I mean, maybe it wouldn't be a total shock. Minnesota, Penn State's funny because they seem to play in the playoffs a lot. And usually it's Penn State the underdog, and they've had some interesting series and games with them. But now Minnesota coming as the underdog, and who knows what will happen there. I mean, Minnesota just beat Michigan State, so maybe who knows there, right?
Yeah.
Notre Dame, Michigan, very unlikely. Michigan didn't play – well, they didn't play a regular game this past weekend. They did play Simon Fraser in an exhibition. And actually, I did not realize this until I read after the fact, but Simon Fraser's program is being disbanded. At one point, they were a candidate to join Division I NCAA hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So now they don't even have a program.
I think what's happening, and I could be wrong about this, but I think they're leaving the NCAA altogether.
I mean, they didn't need to be in. I mean, they were in the NCAA for some things, right? But not for hockey.
No. But I said their athletic department. They're at Simon Fraser University, leaving the NCAA after the 2027 season. So they were the lone Canadian university that was in the NCAA for other sports,
right?
But not for, obviously not for hockey. But there was always talk that, hey, they
right.
could, right? Because they are technically an NCAA. I think they're a Division II school. But
right.
Now they're leaving the NCAA altogether. I would imagine they're going to be a U Sports school. I'm not 100% sure about that. But
they're also just dropping their entire hockey program.
Apparently. They're just dropping it all together.
Yeah. That's
I wasn't aware of that. I thought they were just moving and I thought they were just dropping it in terms of like their NCAA athletic department affiliation. I didn't realize they were just dropping hockey altogether. That's crazy.
I mean, because there's a picture online of Michigan and Simon Fraser's teams taking a group photo at center ice after the game as sort of tip of the hat to Simon Fraser, thanks for all the memories. Sorry to see you go, kind of thing,
Wow.
And it's really, I mean, it's weird that they went from a lot of scuttlebutt about them playing D1 men's hockey to not existing. So, interesting there. But a little peripheral. But that's what Michigan did this past weekend to kind of stay in shape, I guess, because they had the bye. And this was also the first year of the Big Ten playing all single game throughout. This used to be a best-of-3 series, right? Played on this weekend, and then then the semis and the finals. But then you'd have situations where teams would be sitting out if they lost this weekend, and headed to the NCAAs. They'd be off for 3 weeks before the NCAAs started. Not to mention that they could also. I mean, let's say Michigan had the bye week this past weekend, and then lost to Notre Dame in this series. And then made the NCAAs, they would have played like 2 games in a span of a month. And that happened one year, I think, to Minnesota. And also, and even not even that, but let's say you're the first place team, and if you're the first place team who also happens, they get a bye for this, right? And then let's say they didn't play the last, because there's only 7 teams in the league, so someone has to sit out the last weekend. And so, you put that all together, and there was a lot of opportunity for a team going to the NCAAs from the Big Ten not to have played many games. And, Big Ten has never won a NCAA championship since it formed in 2013. And part of there's many reasons you can point to, or maybe it's just coincidence. But one of the things that they point to is like, oh, well, maybe our teams, some of them are, rusty too much. So, and I agree. I wrote an article, was it last year or the year before, how it was kind of crazy. The Big Ten had to do something because, you may think that's an excuse, and that's probably far from the reason why they haven't, but it is not good to go into the NCAAs having played like 2 games in a month. So they had to do something, and I'm glad they finally did. But now that means that there's no more best of 3s there either. So
yep.
The best of 3s are going by way of the dinosaur, apparently.
Well, in some leagues, for sure. In others, we'll still get them. I think we'll keep them in some of the leagues just because geographically maybe it makes a little more sense. Although it's funny, like one of the leagues where it does make geographic sense to do is Hockey East, and they don't do it anymore. And it's interesting. Like when they first got rid of it, I was against it. I was really like, it's getting rid of something you don't have to get rid of. And I'm sure that there's years where you feel like you'd love to see a best of 3 series, but I do think, just like we were talking about earlier, like how it does feel like anyone can win that playoff tournament right now. I part of the reason is because it's 1 game. I don't know that I would have picked or even thought that Vermont could go to BU and win 2 out of 3. They could absolutely go there and win 1 game.
Right.
Like even the weekend, like let's say Vermont does do that and then they go to Providence on the weekend. Would they go to Providence and win 2 out of 3? I'm going to say no. But could they go to Providence and catch them and win 1 game? Anybody can win 1 game. Providence only has 2 losses since the beginning of January. They've given up a combined total of 21 shots in those 2 games. They gave up 11 and 10 in those 2 losses since the beginning part of January, which is nuts. But that just goes to show you, like, anybody could beat anybody in 1 game. Even if Providence outshoots a team 41-10, they can still lose the game 1-0. That's just hockey. It happens sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, listen, check out collegehockeynews.com for all the standings. Now we're into the playoff schedules, the MPI, obviously, all our latest articles. Make sure you're checking that all out. Plenty of good stuff on there. The brackets for all the leagues and whatnot. And, of course, we'll have plenty of articles coming up here as the NCAA tournament picture materializes. It still can go. There's looks like there's about 12 teams that have more or less sewn things up. But we'll talk about that more later. But we'll have plenty of stuff coming up on that. You mentioned the home teams. It turned out that the home teams this year in league games had a .509 win percentage. Last year was .504, but those are by far the lowest in history. I mean, the previous to that, the lowest was around .540. So it's taken a nosedive in the last 2 years. And last year was like, that's a 1-year sample. Let's see what happens. And now it's happened 2 years in a row. So we'll see. Now, the funny thing is they went the other way for the conference tournaments, which is why they're kind of different animals. In the playoffs this past weekend, the home team was, I believe, like 26-2.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you have some disparities in who's home and who's away. So if you're judging it on, during the regular season, it balances out because, you play equal amount of home and away. So that kind of thing balances itself out. I will say, though, that any of the 8-9 or 4-5 matchups that there were, the higher seed was 6-0 this past weekend. So it wasn't just like the 1 versus 8, where that happened. I mean, like Duluth and St. Cloud, that was 4-5. Duluth swept, although those are 2 crazy games, by the way. And Michigan Tech, Bowling Green. I mean, Bowling Green had just beaten Michigan Tech on the road the previous weekend, swept them. They turn around and play the same games the next week, and Michigan Tech sweeps back. So I don't know what – I think, in this debate over, like, NCAA regional stuff, because I brought it up like, oh, look at that, You don't want to give home ice in the playoffs because, people got on my case. And I was like, look, this is between that and the poor attendance that happens every year, everywhere in these playoffs. I've always said, like, we need to press pause a little bit and just assume that on-campus regionals is going to be like this great thing. I'm not saying it won't or it will. Like, people always misinterpret me. Like, I'm not talking in absolutes, because when I put that out there this weekend, I got 4,000. You're an idiot on on Twitter, right? So,
Twitter's good for that.
Yeah, it's always good. Keep you humble. But people don't actually read what I say, I don't know how many people I replied to, like, I didn't actually say that. I love the ones that are like, oh, you just love those 25 people attending a read. I'm like, first of all, it's never happened, and second of all, no, I never said that. So all I'm saying is, don't assume that everything's going to be filled up. Now, the other thing, people say, oh, this past weekend, the Minnesota high school tournament is taking place. I always hear that every year when I bring this up. But I'm not talking about just Minnesota. Everywhere in the country, right, the attendance is always lower for these playoff games. And look, I know that this is not the NCAA tournament. But, and it's spring break. People always bring that up to me as well, and I know it. I get it. Mm-hmm. But it's more than that, too, because sometimes it's like the tickets cost more, and it's not part of your package, and you got to turn around and sell them on short notice. I mean, it's a lot of those things. So all I'm saying is don't assume it's the greatest, that everyone's an idiot for not just jumping at, the on-campus regional stuff. That was basically my point. And playoff home games are different than regular season home games. So that was my thing. But I made one little comment and then spent the rest of my weekend, like, answering doofuses. So I should know better.
That's what happens. People don't know what to read. I was writing something over the weekend. Merrimack on Thursday won their 17th game of the year, which might not sound like a lot to most programs, but it guaranteed them a winning season, which is only, I think we talked about this, only the fifth time that's happened since they've joined Hockey East. Overall, they're going to have a winning season, more wins than losses. And just by definition, I wrote in a headline, that makes them among the 5 best Division I teams in their program's Hockey East era. And I had more than one person that was like, 1988, they went to the NCAA tournament in 1988. I was like, again, can we read here? They were an independent team in 1998. I said, Hockey East era, it's very different. No offense to the 1988 team.
Right.
This team didn't play Babson 3 times. Like, that 1988 team had played like 16, I think, or 14 Division I games and played a bunch of Division II and Division III games, but people just can't read and they just react immediately. So I was finally just responding to people with, read the story, then send me an email. That's just all I ask.
I know. I'd have to go back and, it's not worth it. But there was a couple where I'm like, I never said that. I never said that, So whatever. But like I said, people can, and including me, take these stats and twist them any way you want to prove your point, So I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know what it means. I'm just saying that my point is we don't know what it means. So I just don't think, it's an absolute surefire, we're going to solve all the world's problems by going to on-campus regional. So never mind that discussion for yet another day, although we've had it 4,000 times. Last but not least in this segment, though, I'd be remiss if we don't bring up the fact that Alaska won the first UCHC. And that's not to be confused with apparently, I don't know if no one realized, but there's a Division III conference called the UCHC.
Yes, relatively new.
Yeah, and Utica's in that, which is a pretty tremendous D3 program that has talked about going D1, as a matter of fact. But so if they ever do form an actual conference, they may have to tweak that name. I know when they created the United Collegiate Hockey Cup, they had that in mind, that it could be the United Collegiate Hockey Conference at some point. But it was a great event, at Lindenwood. There were some crazy games. I mean, Alaska was the top seed in that. They had to win a shootout. And because these were technically regular season games, they had to play shootout 3-on-3 and all that. So, but they had to win a shootout over Stonehill to get to the final, and then they won in overtime. And Chase Defoe, the winning goal. Now, he had started his career at Providence as a freshman, didn't play much, transferred. And, he's a senior who's, been tremendous for them. I know Alaska's going to be under the radar for a lot of people, but they celebrated that like they won a national championship, and good for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why not? I'm not saying that in any sort of derogatory way. Like, that was tremendous. And they got to play for something, and that was what the whole point of them doing that was. And I give them and all 5 teams all the praise. Kudos to them. Standing ovation for that whole thing. And I hope it leads to bigger and better, but just in and of itself, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought the games were great. Like you said, I mean, we had some like last second goals, overtime games. It was exciting hockey. And also like it gives those guys something to play for, which I can't imagine. I saw Brett Riley a lot this year because they played Merrimack 3 times. And I said, I can't imagine. And he doesn't know because he wasn't a part of it until this year.
Right.
But I was like, he's talking to some of the other coaches. Yeah, like you just get to the end of the year and it's like, well, this is our last game. Thanks, guys. Like, good year. Like, you don't get that fun. And I know that some teams still go through that if they're eliminated from the playoffs, but like, you don't kind of get that finality of it that most teams get. So I think it's great. I think it's great that they do it. I think it's great for those teams, and it's helps with the sport overall. So I think it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, and there's, one of the reasons why it's cool that the conferences exist in NCAA sports. I mean, there's like 300 basketball teams. And only one can win a national championship. In hockey, it's 64. Only one can win a national championship. That's a lot. You're like, most likely, most of those programs are never going to win one. So, like, but to have something that you have won, you have to have those things. And it's legit, right? I mean, if you win an Atlantic hockey tournament or any conference tournament, I mean, that's just as cool. Like, 50 years from now, to look back and say, that was awesome, what we did.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, you have to have that because not everyone can win. Like, and I'm not saying everyone should get a participation trophy. That's not what I'm saying, right? So I'm just saying there has to be other things you can win besides just the national championship and be proud of it.
Yeah, I was the same as in the league, right? Like if the people that are saying like, I had somebody that was like, I saw somebody's comment that was like, the loser trophy. I'm like, well, it's the same as any other league trophy. Right. Like, is the championship loser trophy? Like, yeah, they don't get an auto bid, but guess what? One team wins its last game. But we still recognize conference champions. Like, it's not much of a difference there.
Oh, absolutely. No, it was great. It was great, and especially to see a kid who loves Alaska. Didn't start out there, went to Providence, and went there, and then stayed for 3 years, and will graduate. And then, it's cool. And hopefully, that again. You remember Alaska and Alaska Anchorage just almost didn't exist 5 years ago. So
that's right.
So hopefully Anchorage can get things on track too. It's been tough for them, but they're back at their old arena now. So we'll see what happens. But let's come back. Let's take a break. We'll talk more about what's going on here in college hockey, and no guests today. That's a rarity, but that's all right. We'll have one next week. So we'll come back in just a second.
Class, today we're talking men's ice hockey. Open your textbooks. Join thousands of other screaming fans for an in-person experience you have to see to believe. It's the NCAA Men's Frozen 4, April 9th and 11th in Las Vegas. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4.
How many teams are in the Men's Frozen 4?
Please leave.
All right, welcome back here. As we head into our second segment, I mentioned earlier that we have plenty of material on collegehockeynews.com, as always, so you should check it out. But one thing we just posted today was Mike's piece on free agents and the top free agents that are out there. And, every year that's a big deal. It's already, some teams' seasons are already over, right? So, and more of them will be over pretty soon. So you're going to, I think now so far, all the independents obviously are now done, but Northern Michigan and Arizona State. Now we haven't heard anything about Arizona State players signing or anything, have we? So
not yet.
Yeah, there's some candidates there.
And there's a lot of guys that have already signed minor league deals from those schools. Like, I don't think anyone's signed an NHL deal yet, but there's a bunch of guys that have signed deals in the East Coast League. From a couple of guys from Stonehill I saw signed today, a couple of Northern Michigan guys, a couple of Canisius guys, an RPI player. So, this is when it starts to happen.
Yeah, in Omaha, St. Cloud, Colorado College, those in Miami, they're done. So, you gotta start keeping an eye on these things. 4 teams in the ECAC are done. Another 4 teams in the CCHA. But, some of the teams who might get bumped off this weekend, I think the biggest one to keep an eye on is BU.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And we already know, apparently, that Sasha Boisvert is not coming back.
Well, apparently, that's been decided. Yeah. Well, according to the Chicago Blackhawks, anyway. But
yeah. But if they lose to Vermont, Cole Hudson could be in the NHL by the end of the week.
By the weekend, yeah. If they lose on Wednesday, they could technically be in the lineup. I guess they could theoretically be in the lineup on Thursday. It'd be a little quick. The only one I can remember that was that fast was, I want to say, was it Gaudreau? That BC won the national championship in 2014, I think, right?
Well, they lost in the semis to Union.
They lost in the semis. Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So that would have been, they lost on Thursday. I think he made his NHL debut that Saturday or that Sunday.
Yeah.
So that was
that's definitely happened. I think Cale Makar was pretty quick.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely Ryan Leonard might have been fast last year too.
Within a few days. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's something to keep an eye on. But on your list there, you had. I thought it was interesting that you had so many defensemen who are sort of undersized, which is kind of the story, with Jake Livanavage and Vinny Borghese, and of course there's another one who is drafted, but Eric Polkamp, who's up there, a Hobie candidate. He's 5'11", which so. It is interesting that obviously they are getting more. I saw your statistic there about how what's 25%,
15% are under 6 feet tall. Yeah,
so it's probably more than it used to be.
Last year, that was last year,
right?
But yeah, I'm sure that's more than it used to be,
right? And most of those are college guys, right?
Yeah, the average was about 6'2". Only 15% of the players in the NHL last year at defense were under 6 feet. But
is Quinn Hughes 6 feet?
I think he's listed at exactly 6 feet.
Right.
He's 5'11".
But obviously his skill's off the charts. But
yeah, I think it's one of those things too where, at least with defensemen, I'm like, the reason why these guys are still in school are in part because they are undersized. Like if Jake Livanavage, I think I wrote this, if Jake Livanavage were 6'2", he would have been a top 60 pick, and he's probably, at least playing in the American League right now.
Yeah.
Like at some point, because with all of those guys are all a little bit older. I think the 3 main defensemen I listed, Livanavage, Borghese, and Buckberg, are all at least juniors. Borghese is a senior. So they're all, the reason why they lasted as long as they did is because NHL teams have put a question mark around their size.
But then you've got guys who are clearly so talented, like Lane Hudson is, he's 5'10", maybe. I don't know. He's in the NHL
again. Listed
right.
Could mean he's really 5'9".
Right, and then Cole. He's right there with him. So there's a few different categories of player there, but I think that Polkamp is going to have an opportunity just because his shot is so ridiculous, and it's not like he can't skate. He's a big guy, but he can skate pretty well, and he bangs. So I don't see what he's missing necessarily, that an NHL team would want. So,
yeah,
we'll see. But then who'd you have at the top of the forward list there?
TJ Hughes, just consistency, from that standpoint. The fact that he can kind of play all 3 positions, he plays in every situation for Michigan. He's got a ton of experience. He probably could have signed last year and didn't, but I had Hughes there. Jack Muser at UMass is another one that I know has been getting some attention. And DeMarsico at Penn State is another one that I know has been getting some NHL attention. And then there's some other guys on there that I didn't necessarily do a write-up about, but I know they're getting some looks and they're getting some the eyes from some scouts, like Jack Stockfish at Holy Cross. More than one team was talking to him. The NHL scouts are a big reason why he was on that U.S. collegiate select team that went to the Spengler Cup, because they wanted to see what he was going to look like against some better players, some pro players. So that's one to keep an eye on. And then even a couple of others that, I didn't necessarily – I haven't heard any of the NHL scouts I kind of talk to regularly. No one has brought up Hayden Stavrov to me, but at the same time, is dude scoring a goal a game? To think somebody's paying attention. Somebody may want that on their roster.
Yeah, right. I saw as well, I mean, this is not a free agent per se, but Ethan Whitenbach's picture is on the internet today as he's at Madison Square Garden. He's drafted by Calgary, and Calgary's playing the Rangers tonight. So he's at Madison Square Garden hanging out with Calgary GM Craig Conroy. So I'm sure that won't make – I don't know if that'll make Quinnipiac happy or not, but he's only a freshman.
They can probably actually, pay for him to get a train ticket down there from Quinnipiac, and it's no longer a violation.
I know, right? I mean, is that considered NIL now? Sponsored by your
if they buy him dinner at the game, it's not going to disqualify him from being ineligible.
The funny thing is, people sometimes I've heard coaches complain, I can't even buy the kid dinner, but I can give him $100,000 in revenue share. That doesn't make any sense. So, that technically may be a violation still. I don't know.
I've lost track.
There's no rules.
Just sue them about it. You'll win.
Yeah, no rules anymore.
Class, today we're talking men's ice hockey. Open your textbooks. Join thousands of other screaming fans for an in-person experience you have to see to believe. It's the NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 9th and 11th in Las Vegas. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4.
How many teams are in the men's Frozen Four?
Please leave.
Let's get to some listener questions here in the mailbag. Mark asks, let's see, the Boston Bruins are going to need to add one, maybe two goaltenders to the developing depth sooner than later. Who do you see as a fit? I'll let you handle that because you're a Bruins fan, so.
Yeah, well, we talked about the free agent list I had today. I know Max Lundgren from Merrimack is getting a lot of attention. He's got about a .915, I think it is now, save percentage in the year, but he's a 6'5" goalie. And you talk about size. NHL teams love size, even though guys are being able to get away with being smaller nowadays because the game's a little less physical than it was. They still love size, especially at that position. So I would keep an eye on him. I don't know if he's necessarily going to sign with Boston, but I know there's been scouts at a lot of their games this year looking at him. And I talked to one a couple of weeks ago who said, we are planning on offering him a contract, and we think that we are going to be one of about 10 teams that does so. So I don't know if the Bruins are one of those 10, but if they're looking for goalie depth, he would be a guy that makes sense.
Like you said before, the defenseman, there's some, quote-unquote undersized goalies out there who are been phenomenal this year. We've talked about Oliver A. Young Ashton from Northern Michigan, just ridiculous. And Lucas Sweden on Bentley, another freshman who's 5'10". And these are all freshmen, by the way. So, hey, maybe they'll grow still. I don't know.
Yeah, former CHL guys, too. I know Joshua Fleming at Penn State is one that scouts had eyes on, even going back to when he played juniors. I know the Bruins were all over Albin Boya at Maine a year ago. He hasn't had a great year. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that they sign now because he hasn't had a great year, but they were in love with him a year ago.
The other 5'10" freshman is a guy we probably should talk more about because he keeps slipping under the radar here, but Johnny Hicks. Have you looked at his numbers?
Unreal.
It was a cute sample size after a couple weeks. Now it's been a good 6 weeks or more, 2 months since he took over for Quentin Miller at Denver. And
I think he started 11 games or played. He's the goalie of record in 11 games.
Yeah. Well, Quentin Miller was a freshman unto himself. He's drafted and he's 6'3". So he was the guy. But if you listen to David Carl on our show last week, he said how dumb were we not giving Johnny Hicks a chance earlier, because what is it? A .960 save percentage and a 1.04, I think it is.
Yep. In 700 minutes.
No, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So, and obviously they have tightened up defensively in the last couple of weeks, so it's kind of coincided with that. This is the time of year Denver always learns to play defense or figures it out. So, but still, that's just nuts. So we'll see if he can keep it up. He's got a big test this weekend, hosting Western Michigan in the one-game semifinal at Magnus Arena. I will be there. Looking forward to it. All right, next question from Kate. Would Michael Robble, that is UMass's goaltender, another Bruins question, make a good fit for the Bruins program, seeing they need goalies for their pipeline. I mean, I don't know if she's in cahoots with Mark there, the previews, but
They'd have to swing a trade to make that happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's a little different situation, but the Bruins fans are out in full force here. But Robel is drafted by he was drafted by the Coyotes in 2023. That is now Utah in the second round. So, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, it's a 6'7" goalie, though, and that's what it is. Like, obviously, he deserved to be drafted in the second round, but every year, like, you watch the NHL draft, you get to that 6th round, 7th round, there's going to be some, 6'9" goalie that you never heard of drafted out of Czechia or something. Like, at that position, they'll take the biggest guy they can find and go, I hope he turns into something.
Well, he has. I mean, for whatever reason, if you listen to Coach Greg Carvel there, he made allusions to the fact that maybe he didn't have the best practice habits and whatnot earlier this season because he had dipped down from last year, but he had got it back together by the middle of the season, and he's been ridiculous. UMass was in last place in Hockey East in early January, I believe.
Yeah,
they wound up second.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is Robel. I mean, they have other guys, and they're playing well, but Robel's been absurd. And, because the follow-up question there from Kate is what's the over-under on UMass advancing to the NCAAs? They looked like, dead in the water as far as that was concerned a few weeks ago, and they are now 14th in the MPI. And our probability matrix has them most likely finishing 15th, which puts them at 37%, but that's not terrible. I think they basically need to make the finals of Hockey East and then not have too many other upsets elsewhere, including their own league.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
So, over under, according to our probability matrix, under, but not by much, and they are on the upswing, as they say. They're coming outside from the outside like a horse race. The whip is coming, and they're gaining ground on the outside. So down the stretch they come. Check out our probability matrix. You go to the website. It's on the front page. It's linked. It's also, we put it on social media all the time. It's under the ratings tab. It can be found there. But that's our simulator that tells you what the chances are of teams making it. So all you people out there asking what the chances are, go check that out. Next question is from Carl. I see there are predetermined sites out to the 2028 for the Frozen Four and regional sites. Yeah, that is true. The sites were determined a couple years ago through 2028 for the Frozen Four and the regional. So his question is basically, when will 2029 and beyond be announced? And is there any information on where these sites will be? And then the follow-up on that is, will Detroit get another chance at a Frozen Four? And any chance we see home regionals in 2029? That's a lot of questions, Carl. There was somebody else who asked about the next round, maybe more than two people, but I don't think they're ready for that, right? Have you heard when because they announced the 4 Frozen Four sites that we're currently in the middle of. We're now at year 2 of 4 when they announced them in 2023. So it wasn't until it was about a year and a half, I think, before the 2025.
They made mention of this. Somebody asked that last year during the State of College Hockey press conference during the Frozen Four, and I think the answer was, we might get something settled about a year from now.
Right.
So meaning around this year's Frozen Four. So maybe April. If not, maybe at some point in the summer. I don't know if let's go through. NCAA usually has a lot of meetings in June, end of the year meetings and council meetings. So maybe around then would be my guess.
Yeah, we're scheduled out through 2028. So what, you got D.C. next year, Pittsburgh, was it? No, 28 is Chicago. Chicago,
yeah.
Yeah. And so, you've got a lot of time till 2029.
I think there was talk too. This is speculation. I'll preface that with this. There was talk too of on the next round of regionals of allowing schools to bid to host in their home building.
Well, I've said that, I
agree. That to me is a logical step. But I think that I kind of had it mentioned to me that it was alluded to the fact that we might be okay with that. So not home site regionals for the top seeds, but Minnesota could bid to host in Mariucci, for example, Denver doesn't have, and it's so stupid. Like Denver doesn't need to host in Loveland. They could host at Magnus. Like it's a couple years ago, UMass and AIC were hosting in Springfield. Like the Mullen Center is bigger. I think
it is bigger.
Like, why can't they just host at home? It's 20 minutes away. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I know the reason why they went away from it because, they were trying to do neutral sites and it didn't feel that neutral when you had a team there and you got to use their own locker room and they were the 3 seed out of 4 in that region. But I've said as well in my piece from a couple years ago, everyone always says, "Oh, you just love the current." No, I don't. I have recommended 30 things that they could change about the current format to make it better. And I said, allow those home buildings to be used because that opens the door up to way more facilities in the Midwest. Because that's
100%.
That's one of the complaints, and it's legit that there just aren't enough buildings, and so we never get to host anything near us. And that that opens it up right away to 6 Division I buildings in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, like the fact that North Dakota has to host in Fargo and not in their bigger building on their campus is dumb.
Right. I mean, all the same fans are going to go. But my suggestion at the time was that you got to coincide that with if that host school is the 4 seed, then your team doesn't necessarily get to go there. So which I could see that causing uproars for people who buy the tickets. Hosting at Engelstad, and then you're the 4 seed, and your team is somewhere else. But oh well. I don't really. I think you can do both of those things and still keep the quote unquote neutral site set up. But that's just me. But as to answer the question, will we see home ice regionals in 2029? I don't know if they're going to solve that debate in time for the next round of announcements. Now sometimes they don't announce the regionals till later, right? The Frozen Four comes first.
That's true.
And then
I would be very surprised. Only because I know I've talked to some people at schools around here that have told me, that they have not bid on the next round of regionals when they typically do. So that says to me that they are taking regional bids for the next round. So I would be surprised if we had home site regionals in 2029. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but I know that they're going through a bidding process because I've asked some schools, some Hockey East schools, some ECAC schools that have hosted before, have they put in a bid? Some have told me yes, some have told me no. So there's definitely a bid process going on for that.
I know there has been certainly more momentum for the idea of home ice regionals. More coaches are okay with it than they used to be, partly because there's been turnover in coaches. But I don't know if it's there yet. So, yeah. I mean, I would say it won't happen, but I will not be shocked if it did. So let's put it that way. That would be my pick if I was a betting man. As for his other question about will Detroit get another chance, I mean, first of all, they have to want it. And I have not heard anything about them being in the mix. So if they were to submit a bid for Little Caesars Arena, not for Ford Field, God forbid, again, I mean, no offense to those guys. I love the guy. I love the CCHA guys who helped set that up. But I have PTSD from that Frozen Four. But Little Caesars Arena, if they want it, I mean, I think they would be in the mix for sure. But I have not heard that they do. So I don't think they're going to get it because of sympathy. They're going to get it if they put in a legitimate good bid.
Yeah, I think if they were going to give them one out of sympathy, they would have given them one by now.
Right. Exactly.
They would have bid in the next round. They would have been like, hey, we're going to give you one in the next round. They didn't do that. So
I am looking forward to going back to Detroit, though, at some point, because I have not been there since the 2010 Frozen Four. And, Detroit was still kind of a trying to rejuvenate kind of city. And, that's been 16 years now. So I've heard that it's really come a long way even in that time. So I would love to check it out again. Lots of good questions today, so that's good. Sometimes we have like one, and sometimes we have like 12, which is there are a couple of redundant ones, so we'll skip. But Fire Drury, I wonder what kind of fan this guy is, has asked. Apparently a Rangers and Providence fan, so there you go. What would it take for Providence to slide into that 4th overall and final 1 seed? Now, they've had a great run here at the end. But if you check out the probability matrix, as I keep saying, they currently have it shows 0.0 on our site, which means it's really 0.01, which means not very much. It looks like Western Michigan has the 4 spot completely locked down. You know, if you just do the math, the top 3 are really battling it out. And you don't even need to run the matrix to know this. Like, I mean, if you're savvy enough and you check out the MPI, if you look at the top 3 teams right now, they are separated by 0.1. So Michigan, North Dakota, Michigan State, 58.69, 58.68, and 58.59. Now, we've actually multiplied that by 100. So it's, you know, in the past we showed it out to like point, you know, so that would be 0.0010. So that's how close they are. But then the drop-off to Western Michigan is pretty big. And then the drop-off from that to Providence at 5 is even bigger. So there's very little room for Western Michigan to move here, especially because now they're down to single games being played.
If he wants to know what, I mean, it very likely is going to require Western Michigan to lose this weekend, Providence to win Hockey East, and then probably like 1,500 other things to happen.
Right, exactly.
I would say those 2 things have to happen.
Yeah.
Western Michigan to lose, Providence needs to win the league, and then there's like, you know, whatever combination of 35 other things need to happen.
Yeah, and which have no bearing on either of those 2 teams, you wouldn't think, but they actually do.
Yeah, something crazy like, oh, well, if Bentley wins Atlantic Hockey, then it's Providence. But if Sacred Heart wins, then it's going to be Western.
So don't count on it. But if I was a betting man, once again, because Providence has moved themselves up into the 2-seed territory, I think they're going to be in either Worcester or Albany. And that is looking more and more likely. Now, if things ended today, that could mean playing Dartmouth or Penn State or something like that. That's where it's looking right now, regardless of where in the 2 band Providence would wind up.
It's going to be interesting because, like, with the 1 seeds, I know typically we'd put them in the closest regional, but
right.
With the exception of North Dakota, all of them are flying.
Right.
So, like, you could put them anywhere because it doesn't really matter.
No, I think that's why North Dakota will be in Sioux Falls regardless.
Like, I agree.
Whether they're 1, 2, or 3, they're going to be there.
And I think there's a chance, too, that you could get North Dakota and potentially Augustana, if they win the CCHA, both in Sioux Falls, which would be a huge.
Oh my God, that would be.
For attendance.
Talk about turn the tables on North Dakota, right? If Augustana gets to play there in their first ever NCAA tournament, that would be kind of funny. But wow, are they? They're not the host though.
They're not the host. No, Omaha's
the host. So Augustana does not have to be there, even though their campus is like 5 minutes, right?
Yes. Someone asked me this too, and we should be clear about this because I'm not sure how many people realize this. The ECAC is hosting in Albany.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me, does that mean that it guarantees that 1 or 2 of the ECAC teams will be in Albany?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
No, it does not. It means that no one has to go to Albany, is what that means.
Though I'm sure that somebody will. I'm sure
that at least one of them will end up there, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, Quinnipiac will wind up there. Cornell may or may not wind up there. If it's Penn State, they're fairly close. That's
well, right now Cornell can't if Quinnipiac.
Well, that's true.
They won't
that's true.
Other
that's
right.
True.
So, and I think you'd award the 2 seed over the 3 seed.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So,
although Cornell would bring a bigger crowd to Albany than Quinnipiac would, but hey,
I don't doubt that.
I was going to say, so let's just, again, putting North Dakota aside and saying they're going to be in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that leaves Michigan State, Michigan, Western Michigan, and again, it's going to be Michigan State, Michigan, because Western's probably going to be the 4. So now from, Michigan, it's actually much closer to Albany than it is to Loveland. So even though they're like quote unquote a Western school, I think if you're going the closer to home bit, then you would put the next team up would go to Albany.
I think Worcester is much closer than Loveland. Either of those schools.
Probably.
By like, I was looking at this yesterday by like a considerable amount, by like 400 or something miles.
Right. So, like you said, it doesn't matter.
11 or 1,200 miles from Colorado. They're like 800 miles to Worcester. So
it may have more to do with like what's going on in the bottom of the bracket and who they want to put there, and et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah. The other thing to keep an eye on, I don't know if this is going to be a big enough issue for hockey because it's less teams to worry about, but there were those stories last week that the NCAA is already telling some of the basketball teams that they know are going to be in the tournament that travel might be an issue because they can't get charter planes.
Yeah.
I did not read enough into the story to know why there's a shortage on charter flights. But if that's an issue and they have to maximize buses over planes, it could get real weird.
Yeah, I know. So, but I mean, I think because the NCAA pays for charters for the whole NCAA tournament in every sport. But I think that they could still say they're going to fly commercial to wherever they're going. You know what I mean? So like
that's true.
They could give them that option and just pay for it. I think it was more a basketball issue than anything. But
I'm sure it was. It's 60-something teams you got to travel there, and in 16 in hockey, it's a little bit easier. But
yeah, they're down. They play the first 2 rounds the week before the hockey regionals, so they're already down to 16 teams by the time the hockey tournament starts. So
that's true.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully that won't be an issue. Same with the women, I believe, women's basketball. All right. Wisconsin is looking hot. Can they go deep in the Big Ten or NCAA tourney potentially? These are the questions I should flag because I always hate when someone says, can this team go Yes, anyone can go deep. They can. Will they is another story, but they are capable. So, I mean, if that's what you're asking, yeah, I mean, there's no reason why not. I think anyone in the top 12, which is, all locks right now pretty much for the NCAAs, are capable. So, and, we've seen them be really good and we've seen them be really bad. But right now they're playing really well. So as far as their goaltending will take them, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's true with most teams. But yeah, I don't disagree. I think they absolutely have the potential to make a considerable run. Just look at what they've done recently.
And Daniel Hauser has he played both games against Penn State. He played both games against Notre Dame recently. He only played one against Ohio State. But he's kind of back in the fold, Again, he's been a freshman, another undersized freshman, 5'11". He was phenomenal early in the year, and then kind of, along with the team, didn't play well for like January, but doing well now. So that's why I say, obviously every team's goaltending important, but in that case, there's a lot of question marks there. But if he gets hot. They have the capability, that's for sure. Rob asks, do BU and BC have to win the Hockey East tournament to make the bracket? Once again, I will point Rob to the NPI probability matrix. BU we've known for a while. I mean, they absolutely have to. BC actually is sitting at a 2% at-large chance right now.
Yeah, I think they have to at least make the Hockey East championship game. Based on those odds, I mean, they very likely need to at least make the championship game. I don't know if they necessarily have to win it. That may depend on what else happens. And it may also depend on who they beat.
Well, if they won it, they wouldn't be at large, right? So I guess they do have to make the final.
Yeah, I guess, it's true. But I'm saying it might depend on, in some part, who they beat. Like, if they beat Providence on the road there, which is the 4 seed, is likely that they would face them in the semifinal, but not a guarantee, then that probably helps their cause. Like if they beat Providence in the semifinal, that would boost them nicely. So that may be required. I don't know. Yeah, it'd be tough. Without beating Providence, I don't know that they could be an at-large. That might be part of that requirement within in that scenario. I don't know. I'm just guessing, kind of based on the math. But
yeah, I mean BC. We had a piece on College Hockey News a couple weeks ago saying how, they were around 12 at the time in the MPI and, looking okay, but that was on the assumption that they were going to be continuing to play okay. But our article basically was like, they may need to win the Hockey East tournament to make it, and we got called morons by about 5 different BC fans. Again, not that I'm not used to this thing, but I'm just saying. And I don't know where those 5 are now, but last I saw, there was someone out there trying to get Greg Brown fired. So they went from one extreme to the other in a hurry out there in BC land, that's for sure.
I still feel like, they've got the potential to put a run together that they can get them where they need to be, just because they did play so well in January and February up until the end of February when they played BU. But it's going to they got some work to do now. There's no question.
Yep. The most likely landing spot in the MPI for them, according to our matrix, is 18th, so that will not cut it. But, all right, that's pretty much it. There is a question here about East Coast bias, which I'm just going to ignore because I don't even know what it means and don't even know what they're talking about. So I wasn't even going to mention it other than to say I would like to ridicule it and whatever.
Does the NPI math have East Coast bias?
Exactly.
Is it programmed into the formula? Yeah,
I know. I deal with this nonsense a lot, and, College Hockey News, if anyone wanted to do an analytical study of the coverage we give to all the teams, I would bet my entire fortune on the fact that it's very, very even, and we go out of our way to make sure that is the case. But when I hear this, sometimes I hear it in relation to the NCAA regional format again. Let's go back to that because there are so many regionals that tend to be played in the Eastern time zone. Let's just say. And, again, there wasn't somebody back there going, ooh, East Coast bias. We're going to put, because the committee that decides these things are made up from literally one person from each conference who are all over the country. So, I mean, it's ridiculous to even say that, but people love conspiracy theories, as we know. But it's just a consequence of the fact that they decided to have neutral site regionals and not allow them on the campus of teams that are in college hockey. So then that's sort of the ramification of that. So I can understand the concern, but to say that the reason was because of some sort of evil manipulation is ridiculous. And again, I've promoted the idea of changing that policy, as we just talked about earlier, to open the door for more Western arenas to have that possibility. But again, places have to bid for them, and that's another thing people always forget. So, all right, man. Well, I think we talked. That was a lot of questions, and I appreciate that. That's good. It gives us a chance to address stuff and check out the site for all the latest as we come up upon this week. What is going to be your game? I know you're going to be at Merrimack tomorrow, but just assuming yes. They're not. Well, I don't want to assume that. I don't want to say they're going to lose, but is there another game out there? Let's put it that way that you are most riveted to.
Believe it or not, the CCHA tournament, both of them, both those semifinal games, I think will be really good. They're both wide open. I genuinely feel like all four of those teams could win that league. So those semifinals should be pretty good.
Absolutely. And for me, I'm going to be at Denver, Western Michigan. So I don't know if there's a better place matchup than that. I mean, you're looking at, 4 versus 6 in the MPI. This weekend, if things go according to form, you also will have Big Ten matchups that will be very intriguing. I mean, you would have Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Penn State, right? And those are all top 12 teams, but nothing is as close as 4 versus 6. So that is the semifinal on Saturday at Magnus Arena, so that should be outstanding. All right, we will see you then. Enjoy the games.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of the College Hockey News Insiders Podcast. To submit your listener questions, please send them to @CHN News on X. And for the best college hockey content around, including features, the CHN Team of the Week, stats, rankings, and so much more, visit us at collegehockeynews.com. Until next time, we hope you enjoy all of this week's great on-ice action, and we'll be back to break it down on our next edition. For Adam Woden and Mike McMahon, this has been the College Hockey News Insiders Podcast.